Hello, everyone. We're going to try this. Last week, the devil tried to get us down, tried to make our live be interrupted. We won't be doing that tonight. Tonight, this is going to work. Okay? So, if you were here last week, you saw that we spoke with Dallas Rico, OG pen pal, and current staff writer on Reasonable Doubt. So we decided to keep this party going and see how many people we could get from Reasonable Doubt to come and holler at us. And today, we're going to have Tim Joe, who plays Daniel on Reasonable Doubt. So, have you guys been watching? Are you up to date? I brought a snack, but I don't know if I'm going to eat it while I'm on here because that feels rude, right? To just like be chomping and chomping and chomping away. That doesn't feel right. So when Tim joins us, I'm going to let him in, and hopefully we don't have the problem we had last time. Okay, Tim is here, and he sent the request. All right, come on, Instagram. Give us the good juju. Give us the good juju so we can get this going this time. All right, let's see. Here we go. First time. Will it put him here the first time? Let's see. Nothing's happening thus far. Hello, welcome. Just trying to get Tim into the room. I pushed accept. I said go live with him. But thus far, nothing. And I don't know what that's about, Instagram. I don't know what that's about. Yeah, he's not here on my side either, but he's trying. He's already requested to be in the video. Now, what's this? This is where, okay, I just now invited you, Tim, even though you're in here. But I tried to send an invitation instead of you requesting. And it just, it says you're unable to join, Tim. I wonder if it will remove you from this list. Okay. Alden, do you mind removing yourself from this list, please, of requesting to join so that we can make that room clear? I can't decline you. Okay, let's click this. It says Tim Joe requested. Click view. I'm clicking view and nothing's happening. All right, go live with Tim. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. It's weird because this happened last time as well, and somebody else had requested. Yes!
Hey!
Success! It did not take as many tries as it did with Dallas, so let's just blame him. Don't tell him that we're blaming him.
Right.
We'll just blame him. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for deciding to be here with us tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. Now, where are you in the world?
I'm in Los Angeles, California.
All right. In Los Angeles,
How about
California.
yourself?
I'm in North Hollywood, so I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
I am here.
Today.
The sun is still out. You said what?
Hot today? Hot today.
Yeah. In comparison, like last week, it had kind of lightened up on us a little bit, but I think that's because of the weather they were getting in Hawaii, and we were kind of getting a little bit of a breeze from it because it was a lot of rain there.
Yeah.
But now we're back to the heat.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
happening.
looking forward to some sweater weather. So
Really?
yeah, I love the cold.
I didn't move to Los Angeles for sweater weather, so I kind of get upset, you know.
As soon as possible. I almost wore a sweater today.
What? Yeah. No. And the thing is, like in LA, even when it's warm during the day, at night, sometimes there could be a chill, especially if you're in LA. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you get to wear long sleeves all the time here. You can't do too many layers, but you get to put on sleeves. You get to get kind of comfy. You can kind of wear boots at any time because no one's judging you because it never gets cold enough for boots. But still, there could be breeze enough at night that you could just kind of get away with it. So where are you from that makes you, well, what I read was that you're from Dallas. Are you from Dallas or did you just live there?
I was born in Dallas, and then I lived in Mesquite, Texas, which was even smaller. and
Yeah.
then I eventually moved to Dallas, and then Plano to be specific, and then I
Okay.
moved to
Yeah.
Houston and San Antonio and Aurora, Colorado, and then Warsaw, Poland, back to
Okay.
Houston.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
see, I'm from
Oh,
Houston.
you are?
I am. And my mother used to live in DeSoto out in Dallas.
Okay. Angela Grovey, who plays Crystal, is also from Houston. Yeah.
Really? Well, I'm going to be chatting with her, so that'll give us something to
Great.
chat about. I didn't know she was from
Yeah.
Houston. Oh,
Yeah.
well, look, y'all have two. Well, Dallas is not from Texas, but he went to school in Austin, right?
I'm not sure. Did he
He
go
went
to
to grad
UT?
school. He went to UT.
Okay.
Yeah. He went to there for film
Right.
school. So it looks like
Good
you
film
guys
school.
have a lot of Texans over there on your set. So that everything's going well then, because Texans
Good
know how
people.
to exactly. We're good
Yeah.
people. We know how to show up. We know how to represent.
Yes, we
Absolutely.
do.
Okay. So the way that we do this is we
Yeah.
start off with what were you even thinking? Why did you even get into this craziness that's called Hollywood? What is that story? How did you get here? Give us your backstory.
You I do have a very weird story
Okay, we like
because
weird.
I was born in Mesquite, Texas. I
Okay.
was probably the only Asian kid for a majority of my life.
Mm.
But we did go to church, and because we went to church, my mom had heard that you can make some extra cash if you put your kids in modeling.
Oh,
And Dallas at the time in the 80s and 90s, I don't know about now, but it was the central hub for print modeling.
oh,
And being the one Asian kid, and me and my sister being the two Asian kids in that market, we worked nonstop. Uh,
wow.
so I was born into modeling. And so it
Wow.
was something like you go to church, you go to school, you get piano lessons, you model, you blow. It was just,
Hmm.
I never complained because I never knew otherwise.
Yeah.
And so until I was about 13, I was modeling. If you go back into any J.C. Penney, Dillard's catalog from the 80s and 90s, that Asian kid
I
is
probably
me.
saw
You,
you. I
you
probably
probably
saw you
did.
all the time. First of all, you're giving us space right now, so I'm not surprised that you come from modeling. I've seen a few of your pictures. You're always prepared and ready. I can see that that's in you. But yes, I grew up at that time looking through, those catalogs because that's back then. Our parents would give us busy work
Yeah.
by having us look through the catalogs to find things that we
Oh, really?
wanted, whether it would be like back to school
Yeah.
clothes or like Christmas time, they would just put these big like Toys R Us had a
Yeah.
catalog. And she would give me the catalog and say, "Yeah, make your Christmas
Right.
list," as if she was going to buy all of those things. But it would keep me busy for
Yeah.
hours. So I say that to say I used to browse
Yeah.
catalogs. So I'm sure I saw your
You
face somewhere.
definitely saw me. I did everything from Showbiz Pizza, which became Chuck E. Cheese pizza
Yes, I used to
commercials.
love Showbiz.
Yeah.
Showbiz was better than Chuck E. Cheese, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. So I did everything. So it wasn't until I turned about 13 that I started getting teased about,
About
just,
modeling.
yeah, about modeling. And that's when
Mhm.
I went to my parents and I said, why is everyone teasing me about modeling when everybody models? And they were like, they had to break it to me that, actually nobody else models. And that's when the first betrayal happened.
Yeah.
And, I became an extreme introvert, and
Mhm.
I hated cameras. Almost still to this day, I
Oh,
feel very
wow.
uncomfortable with cameras.
You see
Uh,
what kids will do, and they're not doing it intentionally, as in they understand the repercussions, like the long-term repercussions. We always talk about
yeah,
how mean kids are, right? Kids are intentionally being mean. They're trying to hurt you, right? Because it
yeah,
makes them feel good when there's
yeah,
a laugh and blah 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 blah. But
yeah.
they don't understand the long-term repercussions of that. And here you are as an adult, and you're still like, yeah, cameras still kind of do
I
a thing for
still
me
like
because
them.
of wow.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but it does. So I became I really crawled into like a shell for
Mhm.
all of middle school and even into high school. I became extremely introverted, but I did find like a little crew of friends, and I liked to make them laugh. And one day we were
Mhm.
skateboarding around the high school, and we said, let's crash the school musical auditions. Wouldn't that be funny? We're like, yeah, we're such rebels. Let's go crash it. So we crashed it, and I got up and just started improving and making my friends laugh. And a week later, I got a notification that I was cast as one of the lead actors in the
And you're
musical.
like, yeah, it's supposed to be a joke.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a joke, and then I just went along with it.
Mhm.
Uh, and then, because it was just another opportunity for my friends and I to hang out after
Yeah.
school, and if we got lucky, get to talk to some girls.
Yeah.
Um, we do the musical, it ends, and I remember my dad came up to me, and what feels like was his first compliment to me, because he's like a math Mensa genius, and
Mhm.
I was skateboarding, punk music,
Artist. Yeah.
rebel, artist, drawing all the time. But he was so complimentary of my, not of my acting, but of my specificity, and the fact that
Mm.
he was like, you became that character, and he was so fascinated with it, uh, that that really planted the seed of,
Yeah.
am I good? Did I find something that my dad thinks I'm good at? And
Yeah.
then so fast forward like 6 years later, I'm in college, um, trying to fill out a credit, and
Mhm.
got into an acting class and met that one teacher who, um, along everyone's journey, you find that one person that really encourages you and says that they see something in you that you didn't see, and
Mhm.
she pulled that seed out and said, let's water that seed that
Yeah.
that my dad had planted, and from there it was that was 2001, and
Okay.
from there I never looked back.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That is so good. There's so many gems there because we don't realize that it's small things just like being seen by your dad.
Yeah,
And then we always talk about how teachers play an important role, but it isn't until there are moments like these where it's like, no, teachers are life
life
changing. You know what I
changing.
mean?
Yeah.
Teachers see things, but they also know which path to kind of scoot you
Yeah.
down, right? Because it could have been a teacher who just said, "You're really good at this,"
Hmm.
but to then have a teacher say, "You're really good at this, but this is what you need to work on. This
Yeah.
is where you can go next to get your next set of access, et cetera, et cetera." It just
Hmm.
opens your mind. And so, as artists, we need that, right? Because we're already the weird kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're already the one who's seeing life differently and living outside of a box. And so, it can be hard to be secure in that,
Yeah.
right? Until there is an adult, someone else has been on the planet a little bit longer that says, no, this is okay. And then
Yeah.
once you get that feeling, and some people never get that. So that's also very lovely that you were able to get that at a young enough age that you could actually pursue it. There are some adults right now who want to be acting, want to be writing,
Yeah.
want to be doing something outside of the box, but there was never another person that said, here's your
Hmm.
permission. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like go off and do that. So that's beautiful. So okay, so you never look back.
Hmm.
What's your way of making it to LA? Like what makes you come out here? Do you already have a gig? Do you just come out here with nothing? Are you waiting tables? Like what's happening so that you can like get your foot in this door?
So I was in college. I did wait tables, and I was doing theater, pursuing theater,
Mhm.
and I was doing my best. All to say, like, from the get go. Although my parents did resist initially
Mhm.
my pursuit of acting, um, they weren't there to stop me if I was going to take two acting classes every summer, for like on other sides of the
Yeah.
city. I remember my mom would call me at this acting class I'd found in Houston, Texas, and she would call the class while it was happening and talk to the teacher and be like, like, because she was so suspicious,
Yeah.
she was like, "What are you doing to me?" And then, but I was taking two classes every summer.
Mhm.
And then I found myself an agent. I got my own headshots taken. I just started pursuing it really hard, and then I started going out for auditions. I was in college in San Antonio, but
Okay.
would drive to Dallas, drive to Austin, and hit the commercial circuit, the industrial film circuit,
Mhm.
and then I got really lucky. Oh no, well, I I tried to delay the eventual move to LA, and asked my parents. Well, no, I didn't ask. I went out and pursued something called the URDA, the University Repertory Theater uh, something, and you go out. I flew out to San Francisco and auditioned for like 20 grad schools. Got a call back for a couple, and then decided to attend one.
Okay.
And at that point, my parents said, "Well, you've obviously done all the work that you need to do. So if grad school is the path that you want to go and deepen your studies, then you have our blessing."
Mhm.
But that grad school pulled out like 4 weeks before,
Oh,
because it was like a handshake deal. I was
yeah.
emailing them about tours, and then they just sort of ghosted me, and then
Not
eventually I got that
a
email.
university ghosting.
Yeah.
Oh,
So then they eventually broke the news to me that they weren't that they were taking back their acceptance of me. And
how do you take
so
back an acceptance? How is
yeah,
this?
yeah,
Wow.
Purdue.
Yeah, Purdue.
Yeah. I'm not, there's no reason I need to not name names.
Absolutely not.
Uh,
Name them.
anyways, it was a blessing
Yeah.
because it sent me down like this very short rebellious trajectory where I was just hanging out with friends, going out, because I was never rebellious. I was so dead set on becoming an actor. But when I got
Yeah.
rejected from grad school, I had nothing.
Hmm.
So then I was like, just
So what was your
partying.
plan?
Yeah.
And now it was
And
going
then,
on.
so for like 2 months straight, I was partying. Easter, a Good Friday rolls around. My mom says, "It's Good Friday. Maybe you shouldn't go out." I said, "I'm going out." I went out, got into an altercation that night. I got a baseball bat to the forehead where
Damn.
I got my head just sliced open. Well, not sliced, just boom.
Yeah.
And so that was a wake up call, you know.
Right.
And then this is a really dramatic story. But then the cops started calling. They caught the guys. They wanted us to go to a lineup, and my mom said, "I think God's telling us that you need to just move out to LA." And
Oh,
that's not what I wanted to do because I was afraid.
yeah.
I didn't
But he
know
hit you
about,
over the head. He said, go. He
yeah,
made yeah.
I don't, I almost don't. The lessons are something that I pull from it, so I don't think it was for me. Like, as a believer, I don't think it was God teaching me a lesson, but He was giving
Yeah,
me a
no.
reason to go
A real.
look in another direction when I was when I was lost.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so then I reached out to a director I worked with in college. He said he had an acting school in LA. Um, I ended up booking a SAG regional Super Bowl commercial because I
Mm-hmm.
was Asian. I didn't even have to audition. They just needed an Asian person in it, so I got it, which
Works
gave me my SAG
for you,
eligibility.
works against you, works for
Yeah,
you, works against you.
yeah. So I got that SAG eligibility
Yeah.
right before I moved to LA. Another like
Wow.
gift.
Gift.
So I moved out to LA with SAG eligibility. I'm going out to this acting school. They say no auditioning, but my friend, slides me this Actors Access thing that says there's a studio film auditioning for musician actors, and I'm like, very naively, I'm gonna submit, and it was with Nancy Nair, who is a big casting director here.
Mm-hmm.
Cattle call audition. I think I was the very last person that they were having trouble finding. I stroll in with the confidence of someone who's never been in this situation before, and booked that role and got my first, got Taft-Hartley, got officially into SAG, and uh, was off to the races. But really quickly got the lesson that
Yeah.
uh, after that movie flopped, boom, back to it was the real
Oh,
grind
yeah.
started
Oh,
there.
absolutely. Absolutely. So
Yeah,
I'm going to pull out again. Here come your parents again. One, after whatever small resistance they had when you decided that you were going to go to grad school on this, they said, all right, you put in the work,
yeah,
let's go do it. Then they saw you were kind of breaking off your path and
yeah,
they said, let me steer you back on,
yeah,
your path. And then third, you booked this gig because of those lessons they were putting you in
yeah.
as a kid. It's like all this stuff that we're like, oh, mom, dad, but then we start to get older and it's like, wow,
Mm.
if I
I don't
didn't
want
have
to. Yeah,
that skill.
I don't want to skip around too
Yeah.
much, but fast forward to 2021. I
Mm-hmm.
was very depressed, like everybody, like the world
Yeah.
was. But I was really in a place where I did not want to act anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents come back in the picture. And I remember phone calls with my parents saying, I'm going to stop. And they were pleading with me, you cannot stop.
Oh,
And they're the ones that convinced me that, like, I shouldn't quit. And the next job I got, the next audition, the next job I got was Reasonable Doubt.
look at that.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
love them.
great.
Thanks, parents.
Yeah. Uh,
Thanks, parents.
uh,
Okay, you mentioned this a little bit, and we don't have to stay on it too
mhm.
long because I want to get into craft.
Yeah.
But talk to us just a little bit about the up and the down. How it's you think you're on top for a
Yeah.
second. You got an agent. I'm in there. Then you realize, okay, there's still more
I
work.
got
You
dropped
get a
from the
big,
top agent and managers in like my first year of being in
yeah.
LA because I got that movie, so I got swiped up by UTA industry, and then
Mm-hmm.
when that movie flopped, dropped right away. Yeah.
And then what do you do with that? How do you bounce back? What is it like to have to be consistently grinding and consistently having to prove yourself in auditions and all that?
You know, I had a very strange moment when I was on set of that movie. I was sitting
Mm-hmm.
there next to Vanessa Hudgens, Lisa Kudrow, uh, with the most incredible catering spread that I still have not ever seen to this day. I've never been on that kind of set again. That was a
Yeah.
very expensive movie. Um, Getting fanned by the makeup department. I was just, and I remember sitting there thinking, I'm not ready for this. I wish I was back in
Oh,
class.
wow.
And so I remember having that feeling, thinking I got here too fast. I'm not
Mm.
ready for this. So when everything got taken away and I had my, like, I got drops from everybody. I remember I was able to screw my head back on when I was
Mm-hmm.
like a year after this magical miracle of an experience. I was walking 3 blocks to go say maybe one line as a co-star
Mm-hmm.
and excited
Oh,
to do that.
wow.
That's when I was like, I'm back, baby. And that's when I was like, I wanted to work for this. Like,
Yeah.
it almost, like, because if that movie had not flopped and been the success that it was positioned to be, my
Mm-hmm.
career might have gone a completely different
Yeah.
direction. But what I needed and what I wanted was to really work for this. And what it made me do is I went straight back to
Yeah.
classes for the next 5 years until I actually booked something solid on, like, through actual craft that I had worked on.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that because mentally you wouldn't have been in the right place to even carry your career wherever the trajectory was going because of this
Yeah,
particular movie.
no
And it's
way.
crazy that the flop of the movie is what got you mentally prepared to have the career that you have now.
Yeah.
So that's how we know it all happens for a reason, right? It
Mhm.
all happens like it's supposed to happen. And you're kind of naturally taking us into this place of craft. So if you don't know, the majority of the people who follow the professional pen are writers.
Okay.
But I talk to writers often about taking acting class,
Mhm.
right? I talk to them about taking directing classes, being PAs, doing any and everything that they can so
Yes.
they really understand how the process goes. So if you could just talk a little bit about your process when you get a script, what are you looking for? What's helpful to you? What are you pulling out? Anything that you think if a writer could be the fly on the wall
Mhm.
watching your process
Yeah.
that they might learn from, even if you don't think it's something that they learned from, it might be, but just can you talk to us about that a little bit? You get a script, what do you do with it? What happens?
I suppose, like, a general opinion that I have is, as actors, as performers of what has been written, it is our number one duty to really uphold what the written word is and to use that as our Bible, as our guiding light, as we
Mm-hmm.
try to navigate ourselves into and insert ourselves into that story.
Mm-hmm.
So, I do hope and uh, um, I, I know writers, I hope writers know that, is that we're all here to serve the story, and the story was written
Mm-hmm.
by, they did the hardest part of the job, which
Yeah.
is putting the finger pads to the keyboard or the pen to
Mm-hmm.
paper.
Mm-hmm.
So number one, our job is to serve the story. Um, and for me, I guess what I'm always looking for, even now, is I'm always just looking for a spark, uh, something that is a personal connection to me, or even, yeah, currently I'm as my my team is telling me that I've got a little bit of momentum with a job right now, that I should be going out more. I keep saying I'm not doing this for the money. I'm not doing this for uh, fame. I don't care about if it's a prestige job. I don't care who's attached. Let me read the script. Let me read the character. And if it, for myself, if it can bring me towards a place of growth as an artist,
Mhm.
then I'm excited and I want to
Mhm.
do it. But if it's a character that I've done before, or if it's something that doesn't challenge me, or if then I'll start looking for other excuses, like where does it film, who's the other attached.
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
all the
yeah.
other stuff starts to bother me. But at the end of
Mhm.
the day, I'm always looking for uh, it what was it meant what's meant for you is meant for you. So if I
Mhm.
read it and it's really something that triggers me, that's truly where I'm always just trying to come from.
Yeah, that's great. It's thank you for saying that it's about the story. I don't know if that comes from theater, you know what I
Mm,
mean? Like respecting the words on the page. It seems like in Hollywood,
yeah,
the writer is kind of low on the totem pole,
yeah,
you know what I mean? And everyone else feels like, oh, well, we can just take that and turn it into whatever we'd like to turn it into,
yeah,
story aside. Whereas in theater, the writer is king, the playwright
yeah.
king, right? Like, no, you have to. For example, I was in musical theater and we would get notes after the show. And I remember getting a note that I said A instead of V.
Hmm.
Like that's how much it mattered that
Yeah,
we said those words on the page.
yeah.
Whereas in Hollywood, sometimes you might be
Hmm.
on a set where you have to stick to it that way. But for
Yeah,
the most part, people really feel that the script is kind of growing and changing, which it
yeah,
is, right? But that respect for writers is not something that writers get to hear a lot. So I
yeah,
appreciate you saying it out loud, and for those people who are watching, being able to hear that out loud.
yeah.
Um, so let's say you have a script. I mean, even now, because on a television show, you get to be more like true coworkers, right?
Yeah,
Like a true family because you're working with each other every day.
yeah.
You know these characters year over year,
Hmm.
right? What kind of collaboration happens if and maybe this might not be you in particular, you might be able to talk to other people's experiences, but as a writer, you're reading something, and because you know this character now, it doesn't
Yeah,
feel true character,
yeah.
right? Like what kind of conversations can then be had with the showrunner, with the writers, with the director about those things that kind of make it collaborative?
I suppose the two people that I've worked with the most, I suppose, my two longtime collaborators. One is Ramla Muhammad, since we've done 2 seasons of Reasonable Doubt, and then my other longtime collaborator would be Dan Fogelman, who I've done just multiple projects with.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're starting with their written word, uh, I didn't realize it because he was one of my very first uh, my very first network sitcom
Mm-hmm.
was with Dan Fogelman.
Mm-hmm.
So I did 44 episodes of television with him.
Oh, wow.
And so
And for people
when
who
you're
don't
reading,
know, can you tell them the
that
show
one
for those who don't know?
was called The Neighbors. And so that show, when you're reading 44 episodes of that high quality of writing, it was a comedy and it was silly,
Mm-hmm.
but it was solid writing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know how blessed I was to be able to get that. So my
Mm-hmm.
standard of what uh, was just normal was already very high, I realized. But you did say the word collaboration,
Yeah.
and so what a great boss or a great writer like Dan Fogelman or Ramla Hamid will do is that they understand you as a collaborator.
Mm-hmm.
So both of them have given me so much freedom to, uh, of course, honor their writing. But
Mm-hmm.
Ramla has pulled me aside multiple times and say, "Tim, if you got something funnier to say, do it," or just say whatever you want.
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes she's just said, "Say whatever you want," and I know that it's not a flippant thing for
yeah.
a writer to say when they have
Mhm.
poured over punctuations and A's and these, to
Mhm.
get that is a real vote of confidence and trust and
Absolutely.
collaboration.
Mhm.
So uh, from the two people that I think Dan is highly respected and Ramla is highly respected, they also give that same respect to their collaborators, even when it's just one of these, actors that they have on their shows.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's great to hear as well, because we always hear the horror stories, you know what I
Mhm.
mean, that happen on sets. And it's great to hear when there are leaders who really believe in collaborative work and who really encourage people to be a part of that process.
Yeah.
I was just having a conversation with a friend because I've been a dancer before. And so we were talking about shows that might have bring choreographers on because there are going to be dance numbers and dance scenes, and how those choreographers are team leaders, right? Like they're not necessarily working for that director or that producer or that showrunner. They're working with
Yes.
them. So their job is to come on set with their expertise about what the formations are going to look like, what the angles are going to look like, so that the director can now know which part of the choreography they need to grab, but
Hmm.
also be able to say, hey, I know that the intention was for the actor to do X, Y, and Z. Now that we've had a chance to work with them, this is probably not going to look the best this way or that way or the other, blah, 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 and have that
Hmm.
conversation. But a lot of the times when people are coming onto the set, they default to just doing what's
Uh,
happening instead of actually participating in the collaboration, to be able to have the
yeah.
conversation and say, hey, can we talk about this? Here are some solutions, to some of the problems that I'm seeing. But I think it starts from having a leader on the set that makes it known that people can collaborate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because if not, then you're just going to stay in your shell and you're kind of going to let it happen how it's happening. But if you know that someone is going to listen,
Yeah.
then you're open to that. And so there are a lot of people who are watching who want to be showrunners. These are the things that you do, guys. These are the things
Yeah.
that you do. You make sure everyone feels like they're
I
part of the
mean,
team.
Ramla, there is, I would say something, a show like Reasonable Doubt. If you if you didn't know who was who on the set, you would not see a hierarchy, because
Mhm.
you will see Emma Yahtzee racing down the street challenging someone to a foot race. And then you'll turn around and you'll see Ramla dancing to some song that people are writing with the sound team. Like, there is no hierarchy. And she's our showrunner.
Right.
So when she establishes that kind of best idea wins, no asshole policy, which everyone always says,
Yeah, yeah,
but you really walk onto our set, you would really not know who's the boss here.
yeah.
Like not in a bad way, but just like
Right.
there
Like, who do
is
I speak to?
like everyone is it's a true like collaboration sees no hierarchy.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's
Absolutely.
a very important
Yeah.
aspect.
And that's what filmmaking is supposed to be, period. And I know a lot
Yeah.
of people on the outside, because in all the other industries, hierarchy exists.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to know who's
Yeah.
working for whom.
Yeah.
But in ours, there are so many people who are on that same line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the director's not working for the producer, they're working with the producer. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? The
Yeah.
director's not working for the showrunner, they're working with the
Yeah.
showrunner. And just that language and that attitude and how you show up on the set is going to make it a safer and more fun place, especially in TV, because again, we're here year after year. You know what I mean? It's not like we're going to shoot for a couple of weeks and then,
Hmm.
all right, guys, goodbye.
Yeah.
You're setting a precedent for, a place that you have to go in every day and then take that with you when you go back home at night, because
Yeah.
likely you're shooting in the same place that you live, which is
Yeah.
also, a good part about television.
And like a
Okay.
lot of us, our career paths are very solitary
Hmm.
journeys.
Yeah.
Writers are in their rooms just writing in cafes or wherever they're. It's a very solitary journey. Acting, the whole journey is so lonely. But then
Hmm.
once you get that moment of success that you get to actually do what you've been dreaming of, you're forced to work with people.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It's
It is
crazy. It's
tough
tough.
because you're not
Yes.
ready for that. You're ready
Hmm.
to do what you've been, wanting to shine. But then you go
Hmm.
there, and I think the number one lesson is you got to
You
surrender
have
now. You're
to.
here. So
Hmm.
you got to trust, you got to surrender, and you got to listen.
That's big.
To
Yeah.
get there, you had to speak, you had to
Yeah.
fight, you had to do that. But once you're
Yeah.
there, you have to let it go and
Yeah,
trust.
that's good. That is a word, Tim. That is a word, because that's exactly what it is. People have been fighting to get out of the mud, and then they finally get into it and they're holding on to it like this.
Yeah.
They're so afraid to let it go. But, the thing that we learn as children is two heads are better than one. And then we become adults, especially artists, and we go, no, nobody knows this better
Yeah.
than I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nobody can tell me anything about this thing. And it's like, but just think about how beautiful it is that this other person has this other perception because they've been working on their skill in their corner and
Yeah.
now they're in it
Mhm.
with you. You know what I mean? If you could just be open, you guys might make
Yeah.
magic, but if you go in not wanting anything from anybody else because you feel like your thing is the only thing and you've been fighting for it, now nobody's having a good
Yeah.
time. And if we're not going to have a good time, we could all be doing something else. Like nobody's in this industry to not have a good time.
Right.
Like we're artists. We're supposed to be free,
And
but
then
to have that tension and stuff in the art, it's not welcoming.
And then there's that the whole conversation, which is you do have to fight for what you believe in too.
Yeah.
But that's another
Yeah,
aspect, of
yeah, that's
course.
another aspect. Yeah. That doesn't mean discounting other people and their
Yeah.
opinions, but it does mean understanding putting story first,
Mhm.
right? What's going to be best for the story and making sure that you're fighting for that
Mhm.
thing to happen. Absolutely. All right. So then now let's talk about Daniel. Tell us about Daniel. Tell us about maybe auditioning for Daniel, what you like about Daniel, and then that'll take us into episode 3.
Great. I auditioned for, I part of my journey was the fact that I actually did I wouldn't say I quit acting, but I put acting on pause, which
Mm-hmm.
meant I put it on ice, on indefinite ice. I ended up getting a hold of the job that I loved and was very passionate about
Mm-hmm.
and was gonna keep me busy in LA while I tried to raise my children. Um, and knowing that, I knew I had no time in my schedule to be running around auditioning, trying to call out for guest spots or whatever it was. So I had no uh, but at this time of my life, I was like, I do love acting. I I don't intend to quit.
Mm-hmm.
My parents convinced me that I can't quit. But what I
Yeah.
do intend to do is maybe pick it up in my mid 40s, maybe my 50s. I can come back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I put it on ice with the one stipulation to my team that said if it's a series regular that shoots in LA, you send me that audition, I give you my word, I put it on tape. But if it's not that, don't email me, don't call
Mm-hmm.
me, don't bother me.
Yeah.
I'm living life. I've got kids.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think 3 months passed, and I got this email for Reasonable Doubt. And my wife and I said, well, a deal's a deal. Gotta tape it. Taped it right in front of this wall right here.
And that's what I was thinking
Um,
the whole time. I'm like, this is the taping wall.
yeah.
This is where the
Uh,
auditions happen.
I the initial character description was something that my immature or my naive, headstrong brain would have said no to a couple years
Mm.
before. Because the
Mm-hmm.
first word said a nerdy private investigator, comma, who grew up to be hot but doesn't know it yet.
Ah,
So like I hung on to the
nerdy.
nerdy. So I told my wife, I'm like, I don't want to do this. And she's like, a deal's a deal. You
Yeah.
said if it's a series
You
regular that shoots in
say.
LA, you got, and on top of that, you are a nerd, but I think you're hot. And you don't even know it. So I said, all
Thanks,
right.
wife.
Yeah, I said, let's tape it. And that began my journey of actually surrendering to Ramla,
Mm.
surrendering to Daniel, surrendering my ego to
Yeah.
this character that I wanted to judge. Because um, part of my journey is my mission statement was like I don't want to put characters on screen that are not going to further my people's journeys.
Yeah.
Um, and it took me a long time to actually recognize that the more I embrace this character, it, I am in my own way able to open up the spectrum to what kind of characters are get to exist
Yeah.
in media.
Yeah.
And so that whole first season was actually me uh, actively trying to be more courageous, but just surrendering, saying, "This may be the last job I ever do, but I'm just gonna trust
Yeah.
Ramla."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
season 1, actually. That was like sort of my own. battle, and
Wow.
it's very, I feel very uh, it's almost embarrassing to admit that because I'm 20 years, 15 years into my journey and I'm sitting there judging my character. And rule number
Mm,
one is don't judge your characters.
yeah,
But that
definitely.
season, I was actively trying not to judge him.
Mm,
Uh, Not that I was judging, but I was actively every day I would be driving home and I'd be calling my wife and said, "Ooh, Asian people are gonna hate me." I would say that on the drive home. I said, "Oh, but what I would always say is that Asian people are gonna hate me, but Hannah, I'm gonna, I'm doing what they want me to do because I need to serve the story. I don't care
mhm,
what I look like.
mhm.
If I come off nerdy, I don't care because I gotta serve the story."
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that was a very strong lesson for me. So season two rolls around, and at this point, I said, "You know what? Because I'm just a critic of my own work." I
Yeah.
said I could feel resistance in that season one from my own end,
Mhm,
if I'm going to be very
mhm,
honest.
mhm.
Um, so I said, I'm going to fully love and accept Daniel for who he is. Nerd doesn't, I don't, if he's a nerd, I love him for being a nerd.
Yeah.
To me,
Mhm.
nerd is only somebody with unbridled passion for
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Right.
Um, so I fully committed to loving the guy. I picked up a coach because I really wanted to um, do better work than that I knew I could do if I had fully embraced and the character. So this
Mhm.
season, that's what I did. I fell in love with the character. I got a coach to help me really uh, find him, but also find like I mean we can get into the more details later, but to
Yeah.
really work scenes out, and
Mhm.
then that and then the very final piece of the puzzle was Rama giving me authority and permission to not say her words and be true to what I thought the character would do.
Mhm. Mhm.
That opened up the character in a completely different way this season uh,
Yeah.
did for me, season one.
That is awesome. I will say this, I can see that.
Yeah.
And just from 3 episodes, Daniel feels more himself, even though it's like, who do I know who he
Well,
is
thank
from
you.
anybody else?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like
Yeah.
he does feel more free and more open to me. And I didn't have those words
Yeah.
until you just said that. And it's like, you know what? That's exactly what it is. I can feel that. So that work that you did, it's coming across. And obviously you're still going to be, your biggest critic, right? But I think it's coming across really
My mom
well. Um,
and my wife said the same thing, and I really appreciate that because I did like go through that process in season one of
yeah.
just I didn't I didn't just embrace him,
Hmm.
and he's a character that needs to be embraced. I mean,
Absolutely.
he's a sweet guy, and I was the actor that was portraying him was the one person that was like
That was like,
also not 100% embracing him.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So two things I want to pull from that is one, nerd can be so many
yeah,
things, right?
yeah,
It's like media has shown us, especially us, because we grew up in the 80s and the
yeah,
90s, right? It showed us that this is nerd. And there's
yeah,
nothing else outside of that. And then we know the stereotypical places that they try to place Asians in is you can only be in this one smart box that does
mm,
this one thing, and therefore it said nerd in the description, so that must be you, and how that can affect you. So that second thing I was going to say was I hate that being a person of color in this industry makes us do those mental gymnastics in the first
yeah,
place. Right? That we carry the burden of
yeah,
how we're going to represent
yeah.
everybody when we would
It's
love to just be the character,
yeah,
just write the story.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Just give this human being, because Daniel is a human being. He is
yeah.
a person who
Exactly.
happens to be a nerd,
Yeah,
who happens to now be played by an Asian man. And therefore, you're going to get some of that
yeah.
right now. You have some more layers to him, etc.
Uh-huh.
But you want to be able to just be true to him. But instead, we're thinking about all of these,
That
and it's blocking the
it's
work.
so difficult, and so like now when I see new actors and they're so passionate and they talk about representation, I'm all about it. I've dedicated my life to representation, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I want to tell them like that's a burden that is not. That's a heavy burden. You need to forget representation in a
Just
way.
live.
Just
It's so hard
yeah,
because we haven't been living from the moment we got here. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's so hard, but if you can find it, it can be very freeing, especially as an
yeah.
artist.
The artist first, you know.
Yeah.
That's where we're all gonna be coming from, is from the fountain of art, uh,
Yeah.
and not the color of our skin. But it's so hard,
Right.
and so
Because
like now, yeah,
you being on the screen is the
yeah.
representation, right?
You don't need to do
Like it's
that.
not
You don't need to
you,
work at that.
you don't need to work
Yeah,
at it. You don't need to try to make the character into something else or this or that
yeah,
in the third. You being there, you being a series regular, you being in the second season, you being more free in the all of that is the representation.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
That just being there is the representation.
yeah.
Mhm. All right, so episode
Okay.
3, hopefully people have watched it.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we can get in. If you guys have questions, go ahead and put them in the question box.
Yeah.
But let's talk about episode 3. Let's see, did you find a different self in the character? Okay, we kind of talked about that a little bit. Did you have a favorite moment in episode 3? Did you have a moment during the table read of, oh, what's going on? Like, what were your thoughts?
I mean, with our show in
Yes.
particular, like every episode, there's gonna be moments where you're just like, oh, like, oh my, like even season 1.
Yeah.
I mainly existed in the office. And
Mhm.
Larry Wilmore is in Video Village all the time. And I'm sitting there as Daniel doing these comedic little beats all the time. So I felt like I'm on like a spin-off of The Office. Because Larry Wilmore wrote and acted in The Office.
Yeah.
And then when I finally saw the final like when I saw the episodes, I was like, whoa, what is
Oh,
Emma Yahtzee
that's a
doing in
different
this
tone.
scene? Yeah, it was so. Even though I'd been part of
Yeah.
Table Reads, I just didn't know we were making that kind
Yeah.
of show.
Yeah.
But now I know what kind of show we're making now.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely every episode is gonna have those moments. But this one, my main goal now with just being uh, free is can I get to set and just try to make Emma Yahtzee or Angela or Morris? Can I get them to crack? And that game is just a is always a very fun game.
Yeah.
So there was a scene that I don't think it made the final edit of this episode,
Hmm.
but the game is when you're trying to make somebody crack, you yourself cannot crack.
Right.
Because like we had something happen. Emma Yahtzee cracked. We had to start all over. But because she cracked, I wanted to crack. But I knew if I started to crack, then we would have just gone into a giggle fit and then like held the day up.
Yep.
So it was very painful to not acknowledge the 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 joy of the moment. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's
Like
just
it's a
a small moment.
the delicate balance because the show is obviously a drama, but you do have those light, quirky, funny moments that kind of balance the show out. So I
Yeah.
can only imagine, when you first saw a cut and you were like, wait, this gets dark.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It gets
So,
sexual. It gets dark.
yes, it gets
Yeah.
sexual, it gets dark. So, okay, whether it's last season or these first 3 episodes that we've seen, what was the moment that made you go, what's going on here? Again,
Mm.
whether it's the sexual moment, whether it's a beat in the dark parts of it, or even if it was somebody else's funny moment, was there ever something that just made your jaw drop?
I mean, there's so many. I suppose. I mean, there's just. I feel. I feel bad because the only one that I can think of right now is one that's coming up.
Oh,
So
I don't know if you
I'm
can
not gonna
spoil it.
say that. I
You
cannot
can't
say
spoil it.
that. Uh, but I don't. You know, I can. What I can say, if there were some like bomb drop moments of last season,
Yeah.
like we went atomic this year, I think. So.
Wow. Let's see. One of the moments that got me this season, and I don't remember if it was in episode 2 or 3,
Mm.
but was Jax finds out that her husband had sex with another woman.
Mm-hmm.
And, so she's in her feelings about
Yeah.
it. But then they make up about it, talking about the woman while they're having sex.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I'm like, the fact that he was with another woman is turning you
Yeah.
on. But tomorrow you're going to be mad at him again.
Yeah.
So this goes back to that debate
Mhm.
Dallas was telling me that, kind of like the cast and the crew. Who do you think's the villain? Is it Jax? Is it her
You know,
husband? Who's right? Who's wrong? Where do you fall on that?
that's what I think might resonate with people about the show, which is oftentimes when you're following an anti-hero, you're like, that's an anti-hero. Or if you're following a hero, you're like, that's a
That's
hero.
a hero.
But with Jax, you're seeing just a human.
Yeah.
And
Flawed.
and if you're having to like face some issues that she's having like in her marriage is a little different than what you think is a marriage is supposed to be. But then you're still rooting for her, and so
Yeah.
you're loving her, and then you're hating her, you're loving her, you're hating, and you're rooting. Like the journey that the viewer has to go on to support
Mm-hmm.
Jax is
Mm-hmm.
actually allowing you to see her really as a human with
Yeah.
all the flaws.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you come out, at least in this marriage, you come out thinking that they're both heroes, and you're rooting for both of them,
Yeah.
even though they're being a little very weird with their
Yeah.
marriage.
And
But you're
very
rooting for
petty.
it. Yeah.
You are. And I think that's what most people love about the show is that the procedural aspect is there and we're in it, but we're really there because of the relationships that everyone has, with each other and how they get complicated over time. So if anybody has any questions about for Daniel, because we're going to wrap up in a second, you can put them in the question box. If not, I will try to scroll through and make sure I don't miss anything. But before we jump, I'm going to see if I want to ask anything specific about episode 3 or talk about anything specific in episode 3. So what we got in episode 3 was, I'm not going to remember everyone's names, but the woman who's on trial, the friend, goes
Mm-hmm.
MIA.
Mm-hmm.
She runs, she's trying, I don't think she makes it all the way to Mexico,
Yeah.
right? But she's trying to get to Mexico. She's got this lover that we didn't
Yeah.
know about, right?
Yeah.
She left her kids. I know the people at home are like hating her for this,
Uh-huh.
right? Like
Uh-huh.
you left your kids, you're out with some man.
Yeah.
And then Jax, basically this is, in my opinion, if you think about what the objective of it is, right? The objective is Jax is trying to put her family first. So she's saying, I'm not going to work on this case, right? So she brings in Corey Cash so that he can work on it.
Yeah.
But because this is her friend, I don't necessarily think it's because she doesn't trust Corey, but because it's her friend, she is that much more intimately involved in it. So it's harder for her to stay away from it. But
Right.
because she runs away and because Jax has to be a part of bringing her back into the system to build her trust again,
Yeah.
then now Jax also has to say to her husband, I'm about to juggle this thing again. And juggling it is what got us into this
Yeah.
problem,
Right.
in the first place. So it leaves them in a place of us going, what is going to happen with this relationship that we're both invested in, even though they're both petty, they're both wrong, they're both this and they're both that. We're very invested, but now she's being pulled by her, I don't want to say first love, because I don't know if Law is her first love or if she
Right.
was with her husband before then, but she loves them both,
Yeah.
right? And she's being pulled between the
And then
two.
this time,
So
Lewis is almost giving her blessing. Like, you got to go do
yeah,
this.
exactly.
That's
He gave
new
the
for
blessing,
Lewis. Yeah.
but something tells me, even though he gave the blessing,
Yeah.
come back to bite him in the butt. Like,
Yeah. Uh,
yeah. And so many people are dealing with that in their homes, right? If you have a job that is that high maintenance,
yeah.
it's hard to be
Mhm.
present. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure plenty of actors understand, which is why earlier when you said you told your team, if it's not something that's shooting in LA,
Yeah.
because for you were prioritizing, I have to be able to be home with my family every day,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But that's not necessarily the case for a lot of artists. For a lot of artists, they are going to be shooting somewhere else, touring here, there, blah, blah, blah. And it's really hard to balance the two. So I'm sure there are a lot of people having those conversations,
Yeah.
in their homes. It's not just Jax and Lewis.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, well, we thank you so much for being here. But before we go, what would you like to leave the people. So again, most of the people here are writers, but
Okay.
lots of people want to be actors and directors. They want to be artists. Some people want to do this independently. Some people want to go the Hollywood route. Is there anything that you would like to leave? Any wisdom you would like to part?
You know, nothing too deep, but because I know there's a lot of writers here, I do want to sort of explain why I felt it was necessary to hire and invest in a coach for season 2.
Absolutely.
Um, I got the script for episode 1, and I said, "Oh, I'm not just making jokes now. Like they got me doing like chunks of dialogue." And when I did it by myself, I was falling asleep getting the words out.
Mm,
And what I didn't want to do is, I know we have a written, how television works, exposition is a part, it needs to push the story along. And there are characters that need to do exposition. And at
mm-hmm,
that point, I was like, I'm really bad at this. I don't know
mm,
how to make this sound uh, unrehearsed. To me, it sounds perfect. I'm not looking at anything. I'm not looking at notes. I just like, and I'm even myself acting it. I'm
yeah,
bored. So that's
yeah,
when I said I need to get a coach because I don't want to treat exposition as exposition. I want to
yeah,
honor what we're doing and we're telling a story. And if I'm given a paragraph of dialogue of information, I don't want the viewer to tune
yeah,
out. I want them to hear what I'm saying. And I want to be actually, as Tim, I want to enjoy saying these blocks of exposition
yeah,
because I don't want to judge it as exposition. It goes back
yeah,
to me coming into the season not wanting to judge
yeah,
anything. So yeah, like I got the, I did want to share like my notebook
yeah,
because
please.
like episode 1 was Can I Live? So I made it look like the Can I Live? Like I looked up like Jay-Z's
Yeah,
like because each episode is titled that way. So this one was Say Hello. I wrote in the same font as that.
wow. I love
On
this.
the Run Part
Notes,
2.
people. This is art.
Prime
This is
Time.
craft. Yes,
Yeah.
I
So yeah,
love
the next
that.
episode's prime time. I'm most
Yeah.
proud of that one. But anyways, yeah. So I hired a coach, and he was a recurring actor on Shondaland,
Mm.
and so I knew this guy knows how to do exposition because
Oh, because they are giving it, right?
yeah, they're giving it. So I was like when I found out this guy works in Shondaland, he knows how to deliver exposition. He's the
Hmm.
one that basically coached me all season of understanding. Like some notes that I have here are bones versus bias. Another note is birth of an idea
Mm.
versus just
Yeah.
memorization
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
um, yeah, just really simple things. But all that stuff is, at least for my part this season, was really picking apart the scenes and like my chunks of
Yeah. Yeah.
exposition
Yeah.
as an actor to be able to just do it in a way that I enjoyed it and in a way that would tell the story in a bit more interesting kind of way.
Yeah, I love that for so many reasons. First, I don't want you to think that you're never saying anything deep because you've been dropping gems this entire time. It's all been wisdom.
Yeah.
So we thank you for
Yeah.
that. Number two, I love that you talked about a coach because I'm a coach, right? So
Mhm.
that's what I do. I help people with their writing. And a lot of the times, people, even when people feel like coaches are only for newbies,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
They don't realize that Michael Jordan always had
Yep.
a coach. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And not just the one that was on the court.
Yeah.
Somebody else who he was, working with throughout that time. And so there's always somebody else who could come in to help you see your craft differently.
Hmm.
So I just appreciate you saying that. So this is somebody who is a series regular. He's on a show. He's doing these things. You could easily go, oh, I know this character, and just kind of show up and just kind of get it done. But to care enough about your craft to say, but I want to do more for the story, to go
Hmm.
get a coach, that's fantastic. So thank you for sharing that. And then the third thing, what was the third thing? Oh, the third thing was when you were talking about your notes that you have written down, I wanted to just bring this to people's attention that those are the beats, right? So as writers, we talk about that often, right? Actors are going to look through the script and they're going to figure out what their beat changes are. They're going to
Yes.
figure out, even though it might be a chunk like this, all of that's not delivered the
Hmm.
same way. right? The top of the chunk is one thing, and then there's a change. Something else takes you here and it takes you there. And writers are doing the same thing, or at least they should be, right? We shouldn't just be writing a chunk of dialogue just to write a chunk of dialogue, because that exposition is necessary, but the way that it's delivered is what's going to cue the audience in on what they should be paying attention to and why they need that information. So I'm always asking the writer why. You know what I mean? Why are we going to give this actor this chunk of dialogue? What's happening in here?
Right.
And where are those beat changes happening so that it does flow and it doesn't feel like, and you know what? It's like the difference between really being able to deliver and the end of a commercial when they tell you all of the side
Yeah.
effects.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, got it? You know what I'm saying? And so writers and actors are doing that same work. And what we're hoping is that the writing, the context of the writing has given you enough information as the actor to find the beat and understand the beat change. And if the writer didn't do that part, you have a little bit more work,
Right.
but there's still, there's still space for you to find it.
And I would say generally, when it's written well, it's really easy to memorize. And when it's not written so smoothly, or if the writer hasn't thought about all those beat changes and the discoveries and like the story of just even chunks of dialogue, it is tougher for the actor to memorize. For some reason, it's just tough.
Yeah, because they don't mean
Yeah.
anything. There's no meaning in them. There's no heart in them. There's no life in them. You can tell that they're just words on the page. But if you understand how it pushes the story forward, what your role is in the scene, versus we're just talking heads. It's like, no, I have a role. My role is you need this information. If you don't have this information, the rest of the story doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
If you don't have this information, then when this character goes into the next scene, they don't have what they need that causes the reaction that causes this blah, 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 blah.
Right.
I'm important, you know? And
Yeah.
so if you're not giving the actor that information and they don't feel like they're important, they don't really feel like they're pushing the scene forward, then it's hard to kind of figure out, why am I giving this line? You know what I mean?
And
Like,
then the brain just doesn't soak it up. It
yeah,
just,
it doesn't connect to it the same way. Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, this has been so great. You have given us so much information about craft. I see people in the comments saying that they have learned so much from you today.
cool.
If you didn't get a chance to scroll through, that's what they've been saying. They appreciate your vulnerability. They appreciate you sharing everything with us. And we're going to keep this party going. We have people from the cast. We have people from the writing team who are going to be joining us week to week.
Yeah.
So you guys can catch us on Sundays at 6:00. We're going to be here talking a reasonable doubt. Check it out this Thursday, episode 4, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about it. Okay, I always have to do my spiel, Tim, because we're going to put this in other places. So I have to do this part. Hi, Shannan Johnson, CEO of The Professional Pen, where we develop screenwriters from idea to pitch. You need help in your screenplay? Go to www.theprofessionalpen.com. All right. Thank you so much, Tim. Have a good rest
Thank
of
you
your
so
evening.
much. Have a great night.
Thank
Bye,
you.
y'all.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.